The land we now call East Africa once pulsed with danger and opportunity. Nearly 2 million years ago, vast savannas stretched beneath a burning sun, cut by rivers that promised water but also drew predators. Herds of antelope thundered across the plains, while lions crouched low in the tall grass, waiting for their chance. Here, small bands of Homo habilis clung to life. They were neither strong nor fast. Their bodies offered little defense against hyenas or leopards. Hunger was constant, and every meal carried risk. Yet in this crucible of fear, necessity shaped their minds. Survival demanded creativity, and from that pressure, humanity's first sparks of innovation were born. Somewhere on the sun-scorched plains, a hand lifted a stone and struck it against another. The crack echoed, and a sharp flake split free. For Homo habilis, this was no ordinary sound. It was the birth of a new way of living. These first tools were rough, jagged, and unpredictable, yet they cut deeper than teeth and claw. With trial and error, the stones revealed their promise. A sliver of meat pulled from a bone, a nut cracked open to reveal hidden food, a hide scraped clean for warmth. In that simple axe stone against stone humans unlocked possibility. Survival was no longer only about strength. Ingenuity had entered the struggle, and it would forever change the story of mankind. Night fell quickly on the African plains, and with it came fear. Families drew close, circling their young, watching the shadows for glowing eyes. Around them lay the fruits of their struggle, meat carved from a carcass with sharpened stone. In passing food hand to hand, something greater was forged: trust. Every tool shifted the balance. A blade that cut deeper, a stone that struck harder, became more than survival. It became a promise. To share meant safety. To defend meant belonging. In these moments, the clan was more than individuals. Together, they discovered the strength of unity. The chipped stones of Homo habilis carried more than sharp edges. They carried memory. Each strike was a lesson, passed from one pair of hands to the next. Children watched, imitating the rhythm of stone against stone, and with every attempt, the technique sharpened. Unlike the instincts of beasts, this was learning deliberate, fragile, yet enduring. It was the first whisper of culture, the idea that knowledge could outlive a single life. In those sparks of teaching, humanity's long journey of conscious progress had begun. Homo habilis walked a fragile path, their lives brief and uncertain. Yet they carried something priceless, the first spark of human intelligence. Each chipped stone was more than survival. It was a step forward, carving a trail for those who would follow. Though the dangers of Africa often silenced them early, their legacy endured. From their crude beginnings rose the foundation of progress. Soon, another figure would appear, taller, stronger, and bolder, Homo erectus, who would carry fire into the darkness. Around 1.9 million years ago, a new figure stepped onto the stage of history: Homo erectus. Unlike their smaller, more fragile ancestors, they rose taller, with long legs built for distance and bodies hardened for endurance. Their upright stance gave them strength and presence, allowing them to walk the land with confidence. Their hands carried sharper tools. Their minds carried bigger ambitions. No longer confined to familiar savannas, they began to explore rivers, forests, and open plains, adapting to every challenge nature placed in their path. They were hunters, wanderers, and problem solvers, ready to test the limits of human survival. With each step, they expanded not only their territory, but also the definition of what it meant to be human. For early humans, fire was both terror and mystery. It roared from the sky in lightning storms, spilled from the mouths of volcanoes, and swept across the grasslands in waves of destruction. To Homo erectus, it was at first a thing to fear, a force too powerful to control. But over time, they learned a secret. From smoldering branches left behind after storms, they carried glowing embers, guarding them like treasure. Slowly, they discovered how to feed flames with wood, how to keep them alive through the night. What once threatened them now became their greatest ally. Fire drove back prowling predators, wrapped families in warmth during bitter nights, and turned raw meat into rich, nourishing meals. It strengthened their bodies, extended their lives, and bound their clans around glowing hearths. With fire at their side, Homo erectus stepped into a new age of mastery and survival. With fire in their grasp and stronger bodies built for endurance, Homo erectus dared to attempt what no human had done before. They left the cradle of Africa and set their sights on the unknown. Step by step, they crossed savannas into thick forests, climbed rugged mountains, and braved icy winds that cut across unfamiliar plains. Their long legs carried them farther than instinct alone into Asia, into Europe, into lands no human eyes had yet seen. Each migration was a gamble against hunger, predators, and the unforgiving cold. But fire lit their path, and cooperation gave them strength. In these bold journeys, they became more than survivors. They became wanderers of the world. Humanity was no longer tied to one land, but set on a destiny to roam the earth itself. Picture the glow of a single fire in the darkness. A small band of Homo erectus huddles close, the flames pushing back the night while shadows leap across cave walls. In this circle, food is passed from hand to hand. Gestures replace words, and children watch the careful movements of their elders. What begins as survival slowly becomes something more. Here, at the hearth, memory is preserved. Lessons are taught, and bonds are strengthened. The fire becomes more than heat or light. It is the center of community. In these flickering gatherings, the first threads of storytelling and tradition quietly take shape. Fire transformed Homo erectus from vulnerable wanderers into masters of their world. Yet mastery carried responsibility. To endure, they adapted, migrated, and thrived across continents for nearly 2 million years. Their legacy was more than survival, it was invention, cooperation, and courage etched into human history. Though their time would eventually fade, they laid the foundation for what came next. The torch of evolution would pass on, but the light of their flames still glows in every step of humanity's story. 400,000 years ago, Europe lay frozen under the weight of the Ice Age. Endless plains of snow stretched into the horizon, where icy winds cut through the land like knives. In this brutal world lived the Neanderthal, shorter, broader, and stronger than modern humans. Their very bodies shaped by the cold. Every day was a contest against hunger and death, where mammoths roamed the tundra and cave lions prowled the shadows. Yet these people endured, moving with quiet determination through a land that punished the weak. Their heavy muscles, keen senses, and fierce resilience turned survival into a way of life. Far from being primitives, they were masters of adaptation humans carved, quite literally, from ice and stone across the frozen plains. Survival demanded more than strength alone, it required ingenuity. Neanderthals shaped the world around them with sharp-edged stone tools, weapons far beyond the crude stones of their ancestors. In their hands, stone became precision, spears tipped for thrusting, blades honed for carving meat and hide. With these, they faced down giants of the Ice Age mammoths, bison, and even the woolly rhinoceros. Hunts were not reckless charges, but coordinated battles where timing, strategy, and unity determined life or death. Yet their story was not only written in blood and survival. Within their shelters, the weak were not abandoned. The injured were fed, the sick cared for. In the coldest age, they proved that compassion, too, was a weapon. Beneath the icy soil, traces of something deeper than survival remain. Archaeologists uncover graves lined with flowers, bodies dusted with ochre pigments, rituals that whisper of belief and remembrance. These were not simple gestures. They were symbols of care, of lives honored even in death. In the flicker of firelight, one can imagine a clan gathered in silence, grief etched into their faces as they laid a loved one to rest. Such scenes reveal Neanderthals not as mindless brutes, but as beings who loved, who mourned, who searched for meaning. In their rituals, their humanity becomes undeniable, echoing across millennia. At the height of the Ice Age, the Neanderthals were not clinging to survival, they were mastering it. From the frozen valleys of Europe to the steppes of Western Asia, their presence left an unmistakable mark. With mammoth bones and animal hides, they built sturdy shelters against the raging blizzards, creating havens of warmth amid endless snow. Each generation inherited the hard-won lessons of the last, sharpening skills and passing wisdom like fire in the dark. Their bodies carried raw strength, their minds carried resilience, and together they stood as rulers of a frozen, unforgiving world. For thousands of years, Neanderthals had ruled the frozen lands, their strength and skill unmatched. But beyond the horizon, change was coming. A new kind of human Homo Sapiens was on the rise. They brought sharper tools, larger communities, and a vision that stretched past survival into creativity and connection. When these two worlds met, only one would endure. The Neanderthals' reign was remarkable, but their final chapter was about to be written in the fires of a new dawn. Around 300,000 years ago, in the heart of Africa, a new kind of human emerged. Their bones told a familiar story: 2 arms, 2 legs, a hunter's frame, but their rounded skulls held something the world had never seen before. Their brains were larger, their bodies more adaptable, but their true gift was hidden within. It was the spark of imagination, the birth of language, the ability to shape thoughts into visions of what could be, not just what was. These early Homo sapiens did more than strike stones into blades. They planned hunts before they began. They imagined shelters before they were built. They taught skills not through instinct alone, but through words, gestures, and memory. Slowly, scattered families grew into communities. Tasks were shared, dangers faced together, and bonds of identity began to take root. Here was the dawn of something extraordinary, a species not content with survival alone, but destined to dream, to create, and to carry humanity toward a future no other creature could yet imagine. The story of our world was entering a new chapter, and its authors were a stop from the heart of Africa. Our ancestors began a journey that would change the course of history. Step by step, they moved beyond familiar valleys and rivers, pushing into lands no human had seen before. Into Asia they ventured, following herds across grasslands. From there, some pressed farther still, reaching the distant shores of Australia, while others pressed west into the forests and mountains of Europe. In time, even the far-flung Americas would bear their footprints. Unlike Homo erectus, who had traveled but stayed within limits, Homo sapiens adapted to every challenge. In deserts, they learned to find and guard water. In frozen tundras, they stitched furs and built shelters against the cold. In jungles, they tracked hidden prey and foraged from tangled forests. Their ingenuity was their passport, turning obstacles into opportunities. This movement was more than migration, it was conquest. A quiet, relentless march that transformed scattered clans into a global force. A species destined to rule the Earth in the glow of torchlight. The walls of caves came alive. Herds of bison and galloping horses, painted in ochre and charcoal, seemed to leap and breathe with every flicker of flame. These were not mere decorations, but messages, symbols carrying memory, story, and spirit. With each stroke of pigment, Homo sapiens were shaping a world beyond survival, a world of imagination. From hollow bones came the first flutes, their haunting notes drifting through the dark like echoes of the soul. Around sacred fires, rhythms grew into songs, and songs into traditions, passed from one voice to another. Burial grounds, adorned with beads and pigments, spoke of a people who saw death not as an ending, but as a passage. Unlike their Neanderthal cousins, sapiens immersed themselves in ritual and meaning. Symbols became threads of identity, binding clans together, ensuring that memory and myth would outlive any single life. When Homo sapiens entered Europe, they found the land already claimed. Neanderthals, powerful hunters shaped by the Ice Age, had roamed these territories for hundreds of thousands of years. Both species were clever, both resourceful, and both relied on the same prey and shelter. For a time, they stood face to face, rivals in survival. Archaeological traces whisper of tension, fractured bones, competing campsites, signs of struggle. Yet alongside conflict came something unexpected union. Sapiens and Neanderthals shared fires, lives, and even children. Their bloodlines mingled, leaving fragments of Neanderthal DNA carried in us today. But this meeting was not equal. Over generations, sapiens' adaptability, vast social networks, and symbolic cultures slowly tipped the balance. The Neanderthals faded, leaving behind echoes of both conflict and kinship, the last humans we would ever share the Earth with. By 40,000 years ago, the world had changed forever. One by one, the other human species faded into silence until only Homo sapiens remained. They carried within them the echoes of their ancestors' Habilis sharp tools, Erectus' mastery of fire, Neanderthals' strength against the ice. Yet Sapiens bore something different, something that reached beyond survival. They dreamed of tomorrow, told stories by firelight, and shaped meaning from the unknown. From these fragile beginnings, the makers of civilizations emerged. Humanity, as we know it, had begun from the first spark struck on stone. The story of humanity began to unfold. Homo habilis shaped crude flakes that whispered of possibility. Homo erectus carried fire into the darkness, bending nature's fiercest force into a companion. Neanderthals endured the grip of endless ice, while Homo sapiens painted visions on cave walls, giving voice to thought itself. Each step was a bridge, carrying forward resilience, memory, and invention. What we hold today are cities, our machines, even our journeys beyond Earth are echoes of those first steps taken millions of years ago, when survival gave birth to imagination, the hunger that drove Homo habilis to carve stone. The restless journeys of Homo erectus across unknown horizons, the frostbitten endurance of Neanderthals, and the boundless imagination of Homo sapiens, all of it still lives within us. Their struggles etched resilience into our bones. Their triumph shaped the instincts we carry today. Each fire we spark, each meal we share, each story we pass on is a tribute to them. Their survival was our inheritance. Their sacrifices the reason humanity could rise and master a world of peril. What truly set Homo sapiens apart was not muscle or sharp as stone, but the spark of imagination. They could picture what did not yet exist, shaping futures with nothing but thought. Around fires, stories transformed hardship into wisdom, binding groups through shared memory and hope. Songs and rituals became bridges, uniting strangers under common symbols. With vision came planning, with belief came cooperation, and with dreams came invention. This gift to see beyond the present laid the path to villages, cities, and civilizations. It made us not just survivors of Earth, but creators of its destiny. The legacy of early humans is not locked away in ancient caves, it pulses in every heartbeat of our modern world. The chipped stones of our ancestors echo in the skyscrapers that pierce the night sky, their campfires reflected in the glow of city lights. Humanity's journey has never been static. It is a story of survival and imagination, of boundaries broken and horizons reached. From the first spark struck by Homo habilis to rockets soaring beyond Earth, the tale is still unfolding. As long as we dream and endure, the next chapter of humanity waits to be written.